Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my podcast or my YouTube channel. I'm your host and guide, Will Caminada, the multidimensional guide and Pleiadian channel. And I'm here to help you awaken, heal, and expand your consciousness. In this conversation, I had the absolute pleasure to talk to Lisa, Blue Rose Oracle. That's how she's known on Instagram. Some of you might be already following her. And if not, I really recommend that you do. She posts daily energy updates, affirmations. It's a really 5D Instagram that's gonna leave you feeling uplifted and high vibrational. And Lisa has been working with within the realms of intuitive healing via energy and vibration and through the quantum field for many years. She has been formally trained in many modalities, including Usui, Angelic and Dragon Reiki, EFT Emotional Freedom Technique, sound healing, violet flame healing, and person-centered counseling, leading guided meditations and holding sister circles. Lisa's intention when working is to help expand the way you see, feel, sense, hear energy, and to help you align with the vibrational frequency resonance of your soul's own light, and simply act as a mirror reflecting the codes, the keys, and the information that your soul's wider consciousness wishes to share and reflect back to you so that you can be fully empowered in your own divine purpose and pathway. In this awesome conversation, we talked about many different things. We flowed through Ascension and how we can best take care of ourselves in this Ascension process. We talked about the Akashic records. This is a spiritual awakening. We also talked about energy work and how that works, how she works with clients. And so it was really, really interesting, packed with information and nuggets of wisdom. And so I hope you enjoy the show. And if you do, please hit the subscribe button, leave a comment or a review if you're listening to this, and share this episode with that one friend or two that you know will benefit from this episode too. Enjoy the show. Hello, Lisa. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to connect with you all the way from the UK.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. Really grateful to be here. Really excited. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been following you on Instagram, and I know a lot of people that watch my podcast or follow me also follow you, and it's always so refreshing and inspiring, empowering, because you post daily energy updates, affirmations as well. So I can really feel the love that you put in that work, but also the intention behind it too, to make us feel that little shift in vibration. So thank you so much for that. And as always, everybody will find your links in the description. But you are Blue Rose Oracle XX. Is that right?
When I set up the Insta tag, there was a Blue Rose Oracle. So I was like, what can I add to it? And I just thought XX. In retrospect, probably wouldn't have added that. That's now my immortalized Insta tag. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So you're sending kisses.
Exactly. It's just like, whoa. Yeah.
Love it. I'd love to know, before we start talking about the Akashic records and the energy work that you've been doing, I'd love to know a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today doing this work, helping us fellow humans to ascend and be this intuitive guy that you are today. So maybe tell us a little bit about your spiritual awakening and how you develop those skills that you have today.
Yeah, sure. I've always been able to see things. I've always experienced the world through a slightly psychical lens. So I was always seeing things in my room as a child. I was seeing auras around people. So to me as a child, it was quite normal. It was only as I got a little bit older and I was like, oh, people aren't seeing that. So kind of learned to suppress it a little bit, which I think a lot of us do. We have all these wonderful gifts. We're all born with that kind of memory and those psychical sensory abilities, but we kind of switch it off through the conditioning as we grow up. So it was always there, and it was always something that I was half in and half out of. So I was kind of experiencing these downloads. I would see things. I would go to places and see spirits, and, you know, there's all sorts going on. But I kind of tried to suppress and switch it off because I thought, this isn't real. I'm imagining it. It was a lot of self-doubt. Going into my teenage years, everything just got very, very activated. So I'd be walking kind of along a field, and then I'd suddenly be in another lifetime. It was very visual. I was kind of moving through dimensions, had a lot of shamanic activations. So that was a really interesting time because I was getting lots of anxiety at the same time, but I was also experiencing all these downloads and these activations. And back then there wasn't kind of Google to ask. There wasn't really anywhere to go other than a library, and you might find the odd book about something slightly esoteric. So it was a really odd time of awakening, really activating everything, but not having the frame of reference around me as to what I was experiencing. So again, I just kind of internalized it and tried to switch it all off. So again, I was walking between two worlds. I was walking in the reality of all this stuff's going on. I'm able to see things, feel things, sense things at quite a tangible level, but equally I don't want to. So it was a bit of a tug of war internally. And that probably carried on till I was about 20. So then I started training to do holistic therapy. So I was working in the day and I was training in the evenings. I was trained to do holistic therapy, aromatherapy, reflexology, and I did start working with clients when I qualified. But then I would be working with clients and starting to see who they used to be, aspects of themselves. I'd be working on the body, but I'd start to feel into the cells in the body. I'd start to sometimes spirits would come into the room, loved ones or animals, and it was as though the more that I was trying to channel my gifts into a more normalized way of working, it activated it more and more and more. So I worked as a holistic therapist quite a few years, but it just felt like the experiences I was having, the experiences the clients were having, weren't fitting the norm of the modalities. So I was a aromatherapist, reflexologist, just there was so much more going on. And eventually I kind of just thought, I need to step away. I was just getting so much energy activations. I was struggling to ground myself. And I was taking on a lot of energy of other people because my practices weren't as refined back then. And the awareness and the knowledge wasn't there. I was trying to look for like-minded people to learn from, and I just couldn't find that. So not within the kind of communities that I was in. So I was like, right, okay. So I kind of just made a commitment to myself. I'm just going to switch it off. I'm just going to step away. And then I kind of went into corporate work, and I went into doing lots of different things and working very logically in education. And there was always like part of me just wasn't connected. I wasn't connected to myself. And there was a lot of residual anxiety, a lot of kind of depression as well, because I was so disconnected from my true self. So then I'd get into relationships that weren't good. I'd start drinking. I had a lot of problems with alcohol because I was just repressing everything. And there was stuff, abandonment stuff from when I was a child that was, repressed as well. So I think overall, I got to the point where I just couldn't do that anymore. It's probably about 2012. And all of a sudden I found that I was struggling to walk and I couldn't sit down properly. And eventually I lost the ability to walk and I lost my mobility. So it's like my whole life just completely shifted, and I wasn't able to work in the capacity that I was anymore. I couldn't really move, so I couldn't leave my house. So my world just got really, really small. So in that time, without knowing what was wrong, it took about a year to find out what was wrong and have surgery and go through that process. But in that whole year, I just went back to spiritual self. I just started meditating because I couldn't move. There wasn't really anything I could do. So I thought, right, I'm going to meditate. And I just started getting download after download after download, and went through this big grieving process as well of all this stuff that had come out that I'd not dealt with, that I'd not acknowledged. And I just really started reconnecting to myself and starting to make that journey of intention of being very present for myself and really reconnecting to my spirituality. And it was through meditation that I just started to reconnect and download. And I kind of came out of that journey after having a diagnosis and having surgery and things. It was to do with ligaments that were all kind of twisted and had to be repaired. But I came out of that process so grateful. The day I woke up after surgery, I could sit up and I thought, wow, this is life-changing. I've had an amazing, miraculous opportunity here to change my life. I've got my mobility back again, being able to go for a walk outside. It's so miraculous and so powerful. And coming into that kind of rebirth with my gifts back online and my connection to myself. So that was a really powerful time. And from then on, I kind of trained to be a counsellor and did lots of things and did lots of different holistic training, and everything just accelerated. And now I can't not be who I am. I can't not live, breathe, be in energy, work with energy, feel it, connect to myself first and foremost. I don't ever want to be back in that place of disconnection to self, because that was a spiral that caused so many different toxic traits to play out in my life, because I was repressing the core of who I am.
So, there's no turning back.
No, I don't think I could now. I think there's been so much work, internal work that I've done, and so much awareness and reflection that I can't slip back into those old behaviors and patterns, because they don't really exist for me anymore. It's kind of like breaking down the template. So my reactions to things are different. I'm not reframing things all the time, but the core of who I am doesn't react in the same way. And those old behaviors just don't seem to be accessible because they're not within the vibration that I'm holding. But it took a long time for me to listen, to stop, to really acknowledge. It took, a lot of catalytic experiences to get me there. But once they did and I started to listen, it's like the world went from black and white to colour. It just really dropped in.
It seems that there's a point in that spiritual awakening where you realize, yes, there is no turning back, and all of these past experiences feel like a past life, right? You remember them, but it's just not a match to where you are vibrationally today, right? So thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's very inspiring, and hopefully it will also inspire people that might be amidst this points in the spiritual awakening journey, because it's not as easy as people might think. There's lots of ups and downs, right? But it's the only way is through, right? And even though it might feel hard at points, there's the soul essence of you knows that this is the only way, right? And I Yeah, I just love your story, because it also shows us that, I mean, that's also like how I feel. I feel like we are born very close to that energy of source, to that spiritual realm. And then as we grow old, we kind of forget, and we lose touch with those subtle realms, the subtle bodies, even just our imagination, right? We don't use our imagination anymore, right? When you're a child, you have that so strong. And I personally believe that imagination is a tool to connect with spirit, where it's a channel where spirit connects through to get to us. And that, feeling of wanting to fit in and wanting to be normal, and almost escaping that, those spiritual gifts. And it feels like spirit was kind of like pulling you back and trying to get your attention, right? But we do need to go through those processes, those times, to and honor even our process, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a level of honoring the journey, embracing it and loving it, forgiving ourselves, right? And that's kind of the healing journey in a nutshell.
Yeah, you're so right. It is. It's about just acknowledging who you've been and who you are, because the spiritual journey, like you said, it doesn't, you don't kind of come out and go, oh, bing, finished product, I'm all good now. It doesn't. There's so many more layers to it. And we're constantly evolving, and we're constantly expanding as the vibration of the planet is rising and the collective consciousness is ascending and rising. So too are we. So we're constantly being given the opportunity to up level our layers of consciousness, our reality, our abilities, our perspectives. And also, I think there is that fluidity, there is that movement. When I kind of reawakened in 2012, who I was then and my beliefs then are again very, very different to who I am now, probably even 6 months ago, because we're constantly expanding. And I'm finding that we're releasing so much at the moment from the cellular body. We're releasing so much from our incarnational ancestral lines right now, and it feels like it's accelerated. So we're really, really growing and expanding and changing at such a rapid rate. And like you said, the only way there is through. It's just to go all in and go, okay, this is it. I'm on this path. I'm going to really honor who I am and everybody else around me in that process, and just come from the heart. It's just this way of being and way of experiencing from the heart that's just really coming through at this moment for all of us. It's heart-based. But we're so used to being in the mindset, aren't we? We're so used to, like you said, the imagination is a channel because it's creativity and joy. It connects you to your heart. It opens up the chakras. But we're so conditioned to repress that or to contain that. Yeah. And that's coming from the mind.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too, the time, because you mentioned 2012. That was about the time that I also had what I call my big wave of spiritual awakening. And also the 2011, 2012 date as well, end of date according to the Mayan calendar. I think a lot of people, when they look back to before 2011, 2012, and to now, it's like lifetimes have passed by. So much.
Yeah.
So much has evolved in us. And I feel like we're going through a similar period to that, in terms of how rapidly these shifts are happening. And one of the takeaways from your story too is that sometimes we have that knowing, but we resist. And it feels like the more we resist and we're like, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want to take that path. And you keep walking the path that you think is the one that's right, or your ego, then it feels harder. right? And I think a lot of people right now are becoming conscious that things are changing, but there's still that feeling of, I don't want to let go of my beliefs. I don't want to let go of my routine and everything that is certain for me, right? Do you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're really spot on with that 2011, 2012, because it felt like a huge collective timeline crash. You know, it was just like there was a massive timeline crash. And it was like so many people went through catalytic, life-changing experiences. And I feel that at that point, it kind of just felt like suddenly people were talking about spirituality a lot more, and people were coming forward and really speaking their truth. And that in itself gave momentum and kind of opened the doorway for people like me, people like you, to kind of really go, oh, we can connect with soul family. We can move into this with a bit more ease. But I think you're right. Right now, we're going through a similar process, and it feels like another timeline clash or crash at a collective level, because we can't keep going on the trajectory that we're going. We're all awakening. We're all really conscious beings on the planet right now. So, you know, we can't continue to be in this format or this structure of denial, of going a certain way, living, being a certain way. You know, it's just not operational anymore. The structures aren't secure, it's wobbling. We're seeing it on the world stage playing out all the time. That, you know, we're just, everything's changing and shifting, because energetically we're all moving into expansion and an awareness and an uplift of the collective consciousness. And as that happens, the structures that are supporting the reality experience that we're all having are breaking down, because it's like this elastic band that is just being stretched and stretched. So yeah, I think we're definitely going through a big timeline crash collectively. And I think it's given us the opportunity as well. That acceleration feels like all of the collective imprints of, you know, the kind of collective imprints around fear and repression and timelines and civilizations, where it was, think about Atlantis, where it just collapsed, you know, all of that. And I'm really feeling these imprints of what we're clearing. This is what's coming up right now. So we're all able to kind of move into the new without holding on to the old programs and patterns from the old stories that we've held as a collective, but also within ourselves from those experiences. So it feels like everything's collapsing, but there's so much expanding at the same time.
Yeah.
It's this kind of simultaneousness of allowing yourself to really expand in and trust in the heart and really be your authentic self. But at the same time, there's so much that's collapsing, that's being released and cleared and healed. I think it's the last couple of years, I don't know about you, but the last couple of years have been an intense roller coaster energetically of having to really step into who you truly are. There isn't any way of not doing so anymore. It's like you just can't not. The unease in the body, the unease when you don't, when you're not in your truth, when you're not in the vibrational alignment for you, it's so deeply felt. You know, it's kind of like energetically the way that the planet is and the energy is. We can't not be anything other than who we truly are right now. And I think that's the way that the collective consciousness is demanding more, is moving into more, is breaking down those old paradigms, because we're being our authentic selves and we're demanding that of the collective experience, that it reflects more heart-based living, it reflects more unity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of where it's all kicking off at the moment.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how the macro plays out in the micro, or what's happening in the collective, whether we're talking about clearing traumas from the cataclysms from Atlantis, or whether we're talking about something current in our lifetime that is a mirror to what's happening or what could be happening in our personal lives as well, individually. and you mentioned like unity, and that unity consciousness really comes from within, right? It's like uniting the pieces, the fragments of your own soul individually, knowing that this will reflect on the collective too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you explain. I love the concise way in which you just explain and just bring the wisdom. It's beautiful. So thank you. But yeah, it is. It's unity. We're finding that unity within, and that's coming into harmony with all aspects of self. It's learning how to hold the duality of, I'm feeling really wobbly and all this stuff's coming up, but I'm anchored in my truth, and I'm anchored in that I'm connected to source love. It's holding this simultaneous energy of what we would know as duality, but bringing it into a centralized emotion. It's kind of like we're coming into the heart and we're integrating all these aspects of ourselves and holding space for all of that, whilst also holding space for the collective energy, holding space for love, holding space for unity over that division that's playing out. And it is, and it's all interwoven, because it's kind of almost like you are the collective and you are the planet is the collective, and it's also you. And we are an energetic frequency or a reflection of the wider whole. We're reflections of source consciousness, source love, but we're reflections of each other. We're reflections of the planet. So everything's always occurring in this kind of symbiotic rotation and this experience. So, and I also think the vibration that you're holding, you'll see reflected back out as well. So if you're holding that anxiousness and that fear, then you'll kind of find more mirrors of that in your reality experience as well, because that's reflecting back to you as an opportunity to see, to move through, to grow, to expand, or just to hold that, to sit with that and just be with that feeling. What is it?
Yeah, I love that you flipped challenge for opportunity, right? Because it's a good quick perspective shift that can help. What else would you say for anybody who's listening and they're like, yes, I'm feeling these shifts, it's overwhelming, both for those who have been consciously walking this path of ascension, and maybe also those who are starting to awaken and starting to at least feel those shifts, that there's one more reality than the physical reality or the reality that they've always lived in. I know it's a big question, but what would you say to those people that are feeling that either overwhelm or even resistance to something that they know it's happening?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. And I think it's just to really, energetic boundaries, I think at the moment are really, really important, because there is so much going on and timelines are closing out and timelines are reactivating collectively. There's a lot going on. So I think the energetic boundaries is the first and foremost to support people. And then it's really simple visualizations, such as placing yourself in a really beautiful bubble of light. Just take a moment when you rise, just to hands on your heart, come back to self, and just visualize yourself in a beautiful bubble of light, and just connect to your own divine light, your own divine energy. Really hold that as an intention that today I'm just held in the divine light of source and my own divine energy. And just being very present with that. And it takes a few seconds. Grounding is really important right now. It's got a lot of solar flares, geomagnetic storms. There's so much going on, in the wider kind of space energy, if you like. Grounding is really important. And even if you can't get to a place where you put your bare feet on the earth, you can visualize roots coming from your feet going into the earth, and just to balance yourself. So I think grounding, energetic boundaries are really important. Visualization, meditation, breath work, if you can find the opportunity to make time in your day for those things, it will make a big difference, especially in the morning and in the evening before you go to bed. Just really that time when you're receptive to energy, utilize that time as a time where you really hone the energy and you really bring yourself into a space of balance and harmony before just jumping out of bed, rushing out and rushing through the door and getting in the shower and whatever. Just take a couple of seconds, a couple of moments just to really kind of put yourself in that energetic space of calm and really visualize the grounding. So I think those two things are really important. And I think speaking your truth, if you're going through the resistance layers, if you feel like I'm changing, I'm evolving, I'm expanding, things don't feel in alignment for me anymore. I feel on the outside of what used to be my life, looking in, and it doesn't feel like it connects to me and I don't connect to it. And it's an odd feeling and you feel displaced. And just speak your truth. Really come to a place within you where you acknowledge who you are and what you're feeling and allow yourself that. And whether that's reaching out to a practitioner, whether that's journaling, whether that's just talking to the people around you rather than isolating yourself, which a lot of times we do when we feel out of connection with the timeline that we're moving out of. We can tend to isolate that, resist that expansion, go internal. But it's about expression, it's about connection, it's about speaking your truth, whether that's journaling or connecting with friends or connecting with therapists or connecting with healers. It's about just really speaking your truth. It's really having a space where you sit down and you say, this is my emotion. I own that emotion. I feel that emotion. It's safe to feel that. It's okay to move out of synchronicity with who I am and who I've been and what I've created. Just give yourself permission to feel what that feels like. Acknowledge it, whether it's journaling or an exercise where I'm just feeling this anxiety. What does it feel like? What color is it? I feel it in my tummy. It's a red bouncy ball of energy. Okay, so you just sit with that and you just feel into that. What is the ball of energy telling you? What does it need? It may need a different color. So you may, if you're someone who's very visual, you may be like, okay, I'm just going to kind of take the ball and hold it and charge it with another color, a soothing color of energy. Or if you're somebody who's more kinesthetic and more feeling, you just feel into that anxiety and just feel it. It could feel like a whirlpool of energy in your stomach. Just sit with that. What is it telling you? What do you need? You're the best authority on what you need than anybody else. Your body's wisdom is connected to your vibration and you. It's your way of communicating with yourself through the physical layer. So it's brilliant to outsource and look for help when you need it and when you're guided to, but connecting with your own body, understanding it, what your body's telling you, what your feelings are telling you, giving yourself space to feel it rather than shutting it down or chastising yourself or criticizing yourself. Oh, I'm being silly. Why am I feeling like that? Sit with it, witness, observe, hold space for yourself and what you're going through. And I think it's coming into that space of trusting yourself, allowing, feeling, emotion, because when you're going through this big awakening, it's very emotive. There's a lot of emotions that come up that we're not used to sitting with. We're used to running away and doing different things. So to sit with it is the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself. Boundaries, energy boundaries, grounding, really being honest with yourself about your emotions and really connecting to yourself and what your body and what your emotions are trying to tell you. And I think that's a really big baseline to move into the experiences that you're having.
Wonderful. Mic drop. I love it because there are so many nuggets of wisdom in what you just said. And practical too. I just want to recap for people that are listening or watching. Grounding is really important so that you feel connected to Mother Earth, but also to your humanness, right? Which is being redefined. The heart, you mentioned the heart a lot, and the heart is the center, really the portal, that state of neutrality that we can, if you want to find that state of neutrality, of frequency, zero frequency, is in the heart, right? So always coming back to the heart. And I loved what you said about expressing your truth and feeling your feelings. I think journaling is something that people might not give too much credit, but it's so powerful. It's like a free therapist, right? I think there's so much power in you just writing what you're feeling and what you're thinking without judgment, and just letting out of your system. You don't even have to read it again. You just let it out. And I also loved the visions that you gave about feeling the emotions and maybe giving an object or a color and sitting with it, like befriending it, right? Because we've been programmed and conditioned to not feel and to not think for ourselves. So now we are awakening, not just spiritually, but understanding that the emotions are the bridge to the spirit, right? The mind is powerful, and you can have awareness of your thoughts, and when you have that approach, that for me, I call it multidimensional approach, because for me, the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, they are different layers of our multidimensionality. But it's so important to just really go back to the basics. Like you said, sit with the emotion. What is it that I'm feeling? Where is it in my body, right? And that's the other thing too that you mentioned, like this divine wisdom, divine intelligence of our bodies that we have also been programmed to be disconnected from, right? So thank you so very much for these tips. And I think this is also a great segue to ask you about the energy work, because what you just said is part of energy work, emotional work. And even though you're not necessarily seeing the color, or you're not seeing the object, but you're feeling it and you're working with it, is that how you also work with clients? Do you either guide them to feel things in their body, to visualize things, or do you also see things in, how does that energy work for people that are thinking like, okay, how is that possible? How's the energy healing remotely, even, right? Because we also work remotely, like not necessarily in the same at the same time, or in a call, right? So how does that work in a nutshell, if you could explain a little bit?
Oh, how do you explain it? My understanding of it is that energy and frequency, so we are more than just a solidified presence. We are energy, we are vibration, and everything operates on a vibration. So everything has a bandwidth, everything has an energy signature, a vibration. So your voice will carry a vibration. That's how we hear it. Your presence has a vibration. So the way that I understand it is that you can connect with permission and attune to the vibrational signature that somebody's sending out, like a wave, a radio wave. Someone's signature just stands out, and you can attune to that and connect to that. And then when you connect to that vibration, you will receive information that that person wants you, their higher consciousness or their current consciousness, their present self, wants you to know, so that you begin that energy connection. And when you bring that connection, you're opening up a dialogue, much like the conversation we're having now, but it's happening at an energetic level. So it's happening in a different octave of energy. It's like a musical note. It's just going into a different frequency, a different bandwidth, or a different vibration. So you can connect, because we're multidimensional, you can connect on those different layers and those different levels. So my understanding of how it works is that it's just a connection outside of the physical. It's tuning into the subtleties and the ethers. It's tuning into those multi-dimensional currents of energy. It's almost as though your soul song, it's almost like each individual has a vibration, and it is like a song, and it's an orchestra that plays, and it goes out into the ethers and into the dimensions, and you can hear it. It's like, and connect to it. So that's kind of a kind of basic understanding of how I perceive it. But I think because I've always been able to sense energy, connect with energy, we all can, everybody can. It's something we're all born with. We can all do it. It's just sometimes how we find ourselves remembering that. It's something we've all got. We all do it. So I think for me, it's always been, I've kind of always been able to feel what's going on with friends, family, even if they've been apart from me. I've kind of always sensed it and known. So I think for me, it was more about knowing that, understanding that, trusting that, and then having to learn, well, how can I do that? What is that? How does that work? And that's the part I'm still processing, putting it into context of how to explain. Because a lot of times we just naturally do. We're vibrational simpatico. If someone's feeling an energy and a frequency, and so are you, there's a vibrational match, so you gravitate. So I think when you work with energy, you set up the sacred container of energy, a safe space energetically. And I think that you have the permission of the client, and the connection begins, for me, before the actual sessions. It just seems to be there. The downloads start to come through. When I have all my sessions currently are remote. Excuse me, I can sneeze. No, it's not coming. You feel a tickle. Oh, no. Yeah, all my sessions currently are remote. It's just how things have worked. But the way that it works for me is that depending on the client, the sessions are very different. So if a client's really visual and very clairvoyant, I'll be going into the connection and receiving the information from the client in a visual way. It's almost like I'll be, if it's a Reiki, like distant, not so much distant Reiki, but if it's like an energy healing session, then sort of create the kind of hologram, if you like, or create the connection. And then I'll start to see into the body, into the cells, into the bones, really visual, get the kind of download visually of what's going on and what's needed, the layers of the body. If a client's more auditory and it's a session, and say if it's an Akashic reading, I'll start to hear, it'll kind of channel through, and it'll all be like their voice is narrating the experience. So it's very dependent on the client and what the client's needs are. So each session is completely different, but what retains the same is the energy protection, the safe space, the opening up the connection. If you're going into the Akash and you're opening up doorways through memories, closing those down. Once you've gone into that Akashic memory, it's important to close that down so the client can access it, and anyone they give permission to, but it's not just out there like an open door in the ethers. And then closing down and disconnecting from the client. So your protocols are always pretty standard, but in a session it can be very, very different. And I think it's because the way that the client is expressing themselves, whether consciously or not consciously, dimensionally or present, is dependent on who they are and how their energy speaks and how they connect and communicate. So a session will be focused around how they show up. Sometimes a client will show up as their higher self, and they'll literally be kind of just telling you exactly what's going on and what's coming through, and it's like the higher self is just sat with you. Other times it might be the inner child, and the inner child's just very, very tentative and just needs reassurance, and just the client may just need some practical guidance as to how to connect to their inner child, which is why the inner child's shown up, because they're kind of, I really want to connect with the client themselves. So it just varies, or sometimes it is galactic and cosmic guides, sometimes it's people who've passed on. So it just varies. There's never one kind of, and you must find that in your sessions, it's very different each to everyone, but it's always, I find, a reflection of the client and the way they navigate the world, whether it's auditory, kinesthetic, whether it's, they're really visionary, however they see, feel, sense the world is how the session proceeds. So it will always be through the lens of how they understand the world. And I think that's because energetically you're connecting with them at an energetic level. So without all of the mind processing and all the kind of ego and resistance stuff, you're actually connecting to their dimensional source aspect, who they truly are, without all this stuff. And that who they truly are, that aspect of them, is a pure, clear communication channel. So they're who they are at their purest, deepest, beautifulest, magnificent level will be what comes through. And that will be very much who they are energetically and what their gifts and their capabilities are.
Yeah, I love that so much. Thank you. And I always like to tell my clients that it's a co-creation.
Yeah.
What we're doing is a co-creation, and I always encourage them to set intentions too, and to invoke their guides and their angels, because they show up too. Like, I usually channel the Pleiadians, but there have been times that I felt Archangel Michael, Mary Magdalene, the Arcturians, but it's because they probably have those beings in their guides, or they're open to receiving that kind of guidance. So it really varies from client to client. And I love what you said about the visions, or being more clairaudience, because I remember years ago, and I was living in London, I think it was one of my first psychic reading that I had with this woman, and she just kept telling me songs, because I love music. I'm a songwriter. I was actually studying songwriting when I was living in London, and she was always saying, like, they're playing me this song by Eric Clapton, Tears in Heaven. I'm like, yeah, that's like my dad's song, like the song that reminds me of my dad. And then they're playing me this song, and I'm like, okay. And then the lyrics would make a lot of sense to me too. So it's just an example of how, I guess, spirit communicates with us in so many different ways, and in sometimes funny ways too, in mysterious ways. So as long as we're open, I guess, to all types of communication, then I personally feel that the more open the client is, the deeper we go. Having said that, I also always believe that they get exactly what they need in that moment. We get exactly what we need to when we go into these sessions.
Well, they're directing the show, essentially. The client is, and I always say, like you said, it's a co-creation. I always say we're like the cables connecting them to them, connecting them to who they truly are at a deeper soul level, the person that they truly are, that they know they are, that they feel that they are, and their kind of more present self in this current reality. So we're really just cables, channels. We're literally like a channel, a TV channel, connecting one to the other. That's all we're doing. The work is done by the client, their higher self, or their conscious self, and their present self, and they're directing it. We're just creating the safe container, holding the space, and being the kind of cable that connects it all. And it's a really, I think it's a beautiful process, and it's a beautiful way. Like you said, it's this co-creation, and it's about you're just holding, you're not really, in the sessions, you're not judging, you're not observing, you're literally just holding and connecting. And the work is really done multidimensionally by the client.
Yeah. And you mentioned briefly that sometimes you also go into the person's Akashic records. So can we talk a little bit about the Akashic records? Maybe for those who might be new to the concept of Akashic records, what is it? And why would one like to access their own Akashic records, or even why would you access their Akashic records in a session?
Great question. Yeah, I think the Akash for me, it's a multi-dimensional library. It's like the spiritual Google that exists in the ethers. So every experience that you have had, every experience that everyone has had on the planet, every experience the planet has had, the trees, the stones, the birds, the animals, the mineral kingdom, all of this information is held in a vibrational field. Energy is kinetic. Energy doesn't just disappear. It moves, it flows. So my understanding of the Akash is that it's a kind of accessible vibration where information is held that you can connect to and receive the information that's there. The totality of everything is really how I understand it, is held within a vibrational space. We as individuals will carry Akashic memory in ourselves. We will carry it within parts of our field because it's within our divine template. So it can be accessible through there too. But it's this multi-dimensional, essentially a library. I think of it more like Google. It's just like it's the spiritual internet where everything coexists simultaneously. It isn't time dependent, even though it's going back into previous lives. They have a effect on your current self because everything coexists at the same time. We see things as linear, past, present, future, but actually it's all happening all at the same time, and we're kind of moving vibrationally in and out of resonance with different parts of ourselves. So somebody would want to have an Akashic session primarily because they may feel that there's something that they are holding in this present time that may have roots that don't make sense in their present life. For example, it may be a trauma, or it may be a gift or something, just an awareness of something coming in through the cellular memory, in through their awareness of who they may have been before, another version of themselves that isn't in this reality or this time frame. So a lot of clients that come and book sessions are, I just know there's something, or I have this experience, or I have this feeling. So they're kind of already attuned to what it is to a degree. You may not get the information, but they'll have an awareness and they'll know that there's something they need to reconnect to from who they've been before. So a session can really support you to, sometimes you may experience clearing old trauma. So there may be physical trauma memories held in the body. For example, someone may have had their arm amputated from the elbow. And in this life, they may have like issues with their elbow, with their arm. It's kind of how those memories and the shock and the trauma of those memories can carry through incarnationally, and they can manifest in the physical body or in the energy body. So it may be something about their physical body that is related to a past life, or it may be something like a claustrophobia, a big phobia or fear that has no roots in the now. And when you visit the Akash, you'll find out there may be an experience that really would have impacted at a deep soul level, a big wound, a big trauma that caused a bit of a fracture or a splinter. We're always whole, we're already whole, but aspects of ourselves experiencing trauma can kind of be a little bit frozen in time almost. So it's just going back in, reconnecting in a safe way to that trauma experience and really healing the trauma imprints of that and guiding the client back to reclaiming that part of themselves. Or it may be a case you go back in and discover that you've had an absolutely amazing life where you were this incredible channel or this incredible healer, and all those gifts are there bouncing around in your energy field, waiting to just be reconnected to, reactivated, reintegrated. And just through going back to that experience of who you are, reconnects you, and everything starts to activate in the energy field and reconnect those gifts. And really, it's like a remembrance. It's like pressing the play button. It just starts to come back online. Or it may be that it's an off-planet lifetime where you've got a very powerful cosmic aspect of you that is essentially guiding you, is your guide, but it's a part of you. For example, you may have had a life on Lyra and be a Lyran, and that aspect of you is now guiding you in a cosmic consciousness way. And it's just about going into your Akasha and remembering your connection to that time, that place, being that cosmic self, pre-earth incarnation, because we have so many other incarnations. So it could be reconnecting you to your cosmic self, reconnecting you to that magical part of you, that galactic cosmic part of you, who just knows that you're from the stars as well as the earth, and that you're the bridge between both, and bringing all of that in. So it can be a healing, it can be a soul reconnection, it can be a activation and an integration. So there's lots of different reasons why visiting your previous experiences can really help you in the now, help you to ground that wisdom, those gifts, help to heal something that just feels off and you can't get to the bottom of it, but you're aware it exists outside of the now. Just really connecting and understanding who you are at a deeper soul level, because we've had so many experiences that contain so much wisdom, that contain this rich tapestry of who we are, because we're not just the conditioning we are now, we're also all of the other experiences. We're also the versions of ourselves that coexist in time and space. So reconnecting to that information is like bringing yourself back home, really receiving yourself and understanding yourself in a more multidimensional way.
Yeah. And I find it that we usually remember past lifetimes, or we have memories that will help us in the present moment for something that we're going through right now, right? Because and the information just keeps being revealed. You thought you knew it, but then it's like, oh, there's this other thing, there's this other lifetime, something else happened, and it's just layers and layers, right? Like you said, you know, maybe you finding out that you had this Lyran ancestry is something that you need to remember right now so that it can activate that galactic chakra and essence in you, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it is, you know, it's activating that essence, activating, like you said, that galactic chakra, you know, because you may be feeling like all the fuzzy, buzzy kind of energy of that cosmic self, but just not quite integrating. And it's maybe because you're not quite giving yourself the space to see and feel and believe that's who you are. But sometimes when we have it reflected back through somebody else, we're like, okay, it's not just me imagining it. This is actually who I am. And this makes so much sense. And people can really feel that coming home to who they truly are. And it's just reflecting back what the soul already knows.
Yeah. And I really love the analogy of the Google or the internet, because, you know, when you search for something on Google, all the websites, they are out there, right, in the web. So it's kind of like time in the Akashic records, all the lifetimes and all the moments, all the feelings are there, but you're not accessing them all the time. You have a tool, which is Google, to access a specific website that will help you to give you the information that you need for you to finish your essay, right? But it's in a more like spiritual level. I really love that. And I have a question. Can we also visit the Akashic records to perhaps tap into a future timeline? What is future for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's all expressions of self exist simultaneously. It's a bit of a weird one to get your head around, but all expressions, past, present, future, are all existing. There's parallel and alternate timelines as well as future. So you can project yourself ahead in time. You can visit your timeline. And in the Akash, you do sometimes find that a version of you will come forward and kind of just share something with you about future timelines. Future timelines don't tend to be fixed. I find that they tend to present potential opportunities. So I always see them as alternate and parallel kind of realities, just existing at a slightly faster bandwidth. So you may have someone come in for an Akashic reading. It will be a future aspect that's coming forward, but it won't be a very directional of this is going to happen. You need to do this or that, because it's taken the autonomy away from the client and it's not fixed. So it will just be coming forward to say, this is the energy of what your future can feel like, what it can be, what you can hold and align with. But it's your choices as to where you move, and I'm always very conscious of not putting too much predictive. You may feel it and feel it's a certainty for the client, but you're guiding them, the client, towards a kind of outcome that may not be right for them in 2 days' time. Maybe perfect right then, but 2 days' time, maybe not. But you can definitely tap into the energy and the momentum of the future self and receive guidance from aspects of yourself who are slightly vibrationally along in that timeline. So yeah, it definitely can come through.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's important to remember, even though they're very simple things, but we have free will, even as a soul, right? And also something that Pleiadians say all the time is timelines aren't fixed. And that is so simple, but at the same time, really complex, right?
Timelines are so complex, aren't they? Yeah, timelines really are. But yeah, it's not fixed because we have free will and we have the opportunity to co-create in each moment.
Yeah. And I feel like we're either as the guide or even the person that is tapping into a future or past lifetime, they're tapping into timelines that are high likely to happen. There's a high potential of that timeline to happen, but it's not like a certain thing. That's why I am always a little careful with years and months and timelines. I usually, and I think maybe that's also my bias, like the Pleiadians hardly ever give me dates or year. And they have given me, but then it was like nothing happened on that date, and then nothing happened on that date next year. So it's like, they're trying to teach me something.
Yeah, it definitely, because if you set down in the context of a session a set timeline, you're effectively moving somebody incrementally towards an outcome, and you're kind of putting it down on the table and saying, okay, at this time this and this happens. And I always think that's taking a little bit of that process and learning journey from the client, but also not allowing them to access their autonomy, because you're directing them, and that goes against, for me, how a session should be. It's not you directing anything, you're just holding. So yeah, and
Go ahead.
No. Yeah, I was just pausing and thinking, but yeah, no.
I was just also thinking that even the past lifetimes or the past timelines, they're also not fixed, because if you're thinking, Akashic records, fourth dimension, whatever, is like time is happening simultaneously, then that past lifetime is is also changing because you're
Yeah.
here now. And so whatever your decisions you're making, your free will today will affect that timeline too, right?
Massively, because if you drop into a past life timeline, that might be a past life timeline that an alternate or parallel version of yourself has had, not the most present self, if that makes sense. So when you're going into a past timeline and you're doing Akashic healing, that has an impact on all the other timelines that come after it. So you're effectively sending healing or changing or supporting yourself through the incarnation after that one and the one after that to the one here, which changes the whole fabric of the tapestry of your timeline.
Yeah.
So it's never fixed. That's how I feel. In the past, there are definitely fixed emotions and experiences that you've had as a result of what you've gone through or experienced. But you're right, it changes, it's fluid, it's not a static thing. So you're connecting to an Akashic memory, but that may be from an alternate version of you who you're actually going to drop into that timeline in 6 months' time. So you needed to connect to that past timeline to really anchor in and expand to the version of you who's existing slightly vibrationally outside of where you are right now. So it's really complex. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They're not fixed in the past either. There's emotional imprints, but they're not fixed because we can adjust the vibrational quality of the memories that we've experienced through healing wounds, through healing experiences, through connecting to gifts. You're amplifying them for that version of you in the past as much as you're amplifying and integrating for the version of you right now.
Yeah. I think that we use the linearity because that's how our mind understands. But really for like the soul's journey is non-linear, but we try to make sense with our linear mind. And one silly thing that was popping up in my head too is because, the analogy of the internet and Google, even when you think, I don't know, early 2000, late 90s, when internet started to become a thing for most of us, right? But that also has been evolving. And so in the past, it was slow and only a few people had access to it, or the access was really difficult, right? We had to wait for hours for the line to be on. But now it's faster. Like we have access on our phones everywhere we go, and I feel like it's happening the same, a similar thing with our consciousness in terms of being able to tap into either the Akashic records or the higher dimensions, right? It's becoming faster and more accessible. Would you agree?
Yeah. Absolutely, because the internet, if you think about the internet being the macro and us being the micro, that accessibility to connect to other people, to download information, literally download it, but then download it through ourselves. It's not visiting a library anymore, hoping to find a book, it's there. So that's really helping to accelerate the consciousness of each and every one of us because we have access to community and information. So it has speeded it up. And I also think a lot of the people that going back, a lot of the elders, a lot of people who have gone through the process of breaking down the barriers. You think about 1960s, 1970s, the people who were kind of starting the kind of hippie movements, they were breaking down the boundaries, breaking the paradigms for people like us to be able to be who we are. And the work that we've been doing has been breaking down those structures so that people awakening now are awakening or reawakening very quickly. It's almost like they don't have to go through the kind of old blocks, the abundance blocks and the self-worth. It's still there, but not like it used to be, because each generation clears those imprints to enable easier accessibility for those that come after. And I think that people reawakening now, we just got such an amazing, exciting time because it's all online. They're literally like waking up and bang, gifts are activating, they can access information, which is so precious when you're going through an awakening, to be able to find like-minded souls, to just find something that really helps you think, oh, that makes sense. I understand that. And I think the
like
speed
the software is updated for everybody.
Exactly, perfectly said. Yeah, it's updated because it's all the clearing's being done by each generation. So the software's just there being updated continuously. But that also
coming.
every day. It's like, but because of that, we're also having to update to keep up with that kind of next ascension wave of awakeners that are awakening right now. And the kind of probably people in their mid-20s right now are really just spiritually so conscious. They're so stepping in with everything kind of downloaded and ready. They're amazing. So we're having to kind of up level now and upgrade to be able to kind of hold space and support also, because it's a whole different energy template that people are coming in with now. So I think we're being given the opportunity to upgrade also, because they don't have as many of the old barriers that we've come in with, that conditioning.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I could talk to you for a whole day, but I want to be respectful of your time. I have a couple of questions from the Starseed Grid community, which is my online community. Two members submitted a question that I would like to ask you. And if for anybody listening or watching, if you want to have that opportunity to submit questions to my upcoming guests, you can join the community. The links will be in the description. We also have live sessions twice a month. There's an activation. There's also a channeling session with the Pleiadians. And the community aspect is something that's so precious too, which is a very Age of Aquarius thing, and something that we really need in this ascension journey. So this one is coming from the UK. And the question is one's soul blueprint stored in the personal Akash or soul family Akashic record? And is it beneficial to know what traumatic experiences we were meant to have? I had a strong resentment towards my soul for over 30 years for putting me through upsetting stuff, particularly as a child.
Oh, thank you to everybody submitting questions. Well, your group sounds amazing. Absolutely brilliant. Really interesting question, and thank you. I feel that your soul blueprint is held in the Akash, but it's held within you. It's held within your body, within your memories, within your cells. Also, to a degree, in your DNA, I feel it gets activated in each incarnation. So you are your blueprint, essentially. It's the culmination and totality of all you are and all you're going to be. That's just my kind of basic understanding of the blueprint. I think where there's been so much trauma, and I'm so sorry to hear that you experienced that. It sounds like you've been on a very challenging journey to really connect to your soul. And there's a lot of experiences that you have been through that have really pushed those growth edges. And it's not been an easy journey. So I think to be on this path, doing the work that you're doing, and to be on this path, experiencing expression and reconnecting with your soul, is such a courageous journey. So I really feel you're such a warrior of the soul and a warrior of the heart, and your experiences will really inform others because of what you've been through and how you can lead and guide others through your wisdom accumulated through the experiences. And as you said, disconnecting, feeling that resentment towards your soul for the experiences that you have been through. And that's such a big thing to hold. That's a really big emotion and experience to hold, feeling that disconnection because of the trauma of the experiences. I personally feel that when we come in to this lifetime, we have a set of different probabilities for what we as a soul want to experience. And I think that's where this resentment towards your soul had come from, because it's like, why would I choose to put myself in this situation? Why would I choose to go through this experience? And I feel like part of that is to guide and lead others, is to guide and heal others, and to share your story and your journey so that you can help others. So I feel like sometimes do we need to go through those traumatic experiences in our past lives, in our present reality? Sometimes no, and sometimes yes. It depends on what you felt as a soul was the most pivotal way for you to connect at a deeper soul level to you, in order to help, support and connect to others. But I feel sometimes when there's been so much trauma, it's not always in our best interest to go back in. We work at a level of healing that is directed by our own self, and we know how much we need to go back into that trauma, or how much we need to heal, or when and how. And I think sometimes it's not always great to book a session with someone. They go, right, we're going deep into that trauma. That's not going to be beneficial for you. It's going to reactivate those trauma imprints. So I think sometimes, no, it's not always in the best interest to go back into it. But as to why that has been the pathway of your life, it just feels that it's because you're such a warrior soul, and that you are someone who can really, really help others. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was reminded of something that my previous guest, Brandon Beecham, said, that he said something along the lines of, you were the brave soul that chose, yeah, I'll take this role. I'll do it, right? Because our soul is free from the ego, right? So if you're thinking of your soul, thinking of, okay, I'm going to reincarnate, and what is going to be my experience? If the soul is only thinking about the evolution of the soul for the highest good of the soul and of the collective, but obviously when we come here, then there's the ego element, and the ego is like resenting even.
Why?
Really, did I, it's like that meme you posted the other day, the Mariah Carey meme.
Yeah.
Did I really choose this? Like, no. Would I do it again? No.
No. No, and you won't have to do it again because you're really doing the work in this lifetime. But yeah, it is. It's really hard when you're the embodiment of the trauma and the experience in the now to really think, why would I put myself through this? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. The next question is from India. And she says, I have recently started my work in Akashic blueprint reading, and I have a question about it. While I'm receiving the readings, I have a neutral mind, not getting emotionally involved at all. Yet, whoever gives their readings to be done ends up seeing me in their dream. Sometimes it's at the same time I'm reading their Akashic record. Does this signify something? And this actually happened this week, because she offered me a session to practice, and then the night before, she showed up in my dreams, and I told her in the reading. I couldn't really remember exactly what was going on, but then she asked this question, and what do you think this happened?
Wow. That's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. I think, and this is just from an intuitive level, I think that what you're actually doing is making that connection through the dream time realm with your clients. And what came through was an image of you kind of coming through and just setting a really beautiful intention, almost like a prayer, to connect with the client in the highest good. It's almost like that version of you, that higher consciousness version of you is coming in through the energy connection to hold sacred space, to really connect with the client. And I just get this energy of you being like a divine mother energy, holding space and really kind of blessing and almost like praying over the client just for the highest outcome and the highest good of all. It's such a powerful way to work, and it feels like your work is coming through the multi-dimensional realms. You must be an incredible reader, because the energy that comes through and the purity of intention that comes through when you're working. But I feel like the coming into the dream time is you almost being like this mother figure, kind of really helping to attune the client and the client to attune to your energy in the safest possible way, and really holding space with intention and prayer for the highest good for all. It just feels like a beautiful practice that you may have done, and I think you probably would have done in your own Akash in your past lifetime, as a way of working with people that's come through with you. So it just feels like a blessing and an intention and a prayer. And it feels like a beautiful way, because we get the downloads before we start working with clients, and the clients get the downloads before they start working with us. That's why they're drawn to us. So it feels like you're just really creating sacred space with the connection. That's my take on it. So I hope that resonates.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. I feel like, and that's coming from a very linear perspective, but I do have a feeling that the dream astral realm is close to the Akashic realm too. When we go through the 9 dimensions of consciousness in my program, The Multidimensional Self, the Akashic records shows up in different dimensions. So like the first dimension feels like it's more of like the Akashic records of Mother Earth. And the fourth dimension feels more like it's the Akashic records of humans, of humanity, the collective humanity. And then the eighth dimension feels like it's more of the galactic Akashic records. And so that, again, coming from a linear perspective, it just feels to me that when we set that intention to tap into somebody's Akashic records, we're probably also working in that dream realm too.
Definitely, yeah, because they're all vibrational octaves, like notes on a piano. So they all kind of blend and merge. They're very definitive in their own right, but they all vibrationally merge as well, because we kind of put them on bricks on top of one another, but actually dimensionally they merge and they flow. So they can kind of, you can connect to one dimension maybe during a session, and then another dimensional octave of the Akash will open, so you go through those layers. But yeah, just such a beautiful image of this lady just really connecting, and it's like she's this energy of like the mother holding the child with the utmost unconditional love. It's a really beautiful way of working. Yeah,
thank you so much. Thank you. I have a final round of questions that I call fun and deep questions. So whatever comes, I know you're a very intuitive person, whatever comes to your mind, you can just answer it. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
What is your definition of love?
Definition of love is unity within, oneness consciousness.
Beautiful. And what brings you joy, Lisa?
What brings me joy? That's a really tricky question. It shouldn't be, should it? What brings me joy? I think love, just love, connection with people, animals, the world, the planet. Connection brings me joy.
Imagine that all the books in the world were going to be destroyed and deleted forever. You can save one book. What book would you save and why?
Oh, that's a really brilliant question.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a book, I think, by Ted Andrews that I read years ago, and it's about spirit totem animals, and it's about connecting with totem animals, and just picturing that. What book would I want to keep? It would be that one. So it obviously had a really big impact on me.
Wonderful. What's the name of the author of the book?
Ted Andrews. So I think he's deceased, but he wrote loads of books about auras, chakras, like very, very early on. But this was about connecting with your spirit animals, totem animals. I think he had a deck as well, but I only have the book.
Wonderful.
That just came to my mind then. So yeah. That's
wonderful. Maybe, anybody interested can look it up on the human Google, not the Akashic. What is one thing about you that people might be surprised to know?
Ooh. Might be surprised to know. Again, these are really thought-provoking questions. One thing people might be surprised to know. Probably that I used to be very, very corporate and very suited, and I worked in human resources, and I was very focused and career-driven. So probably surprised to know that people who know me well would be surprised to know that I used to be very organised. I used to be very, very methodical, and that I was just very, very ambitious in career building. So yeah, I think people who know me now be very surprised because I'm the opposite.
Yeah, well, that was a layer of your Capricorn self.
Definitely.
That you've experienced.
It was definitely the Capricorn self being activated there, for sure.
Yeah. So let's suppose that we sign contract, even though the contract is a very 3D term. But let's suppose that we sign contracts before we come here into this life. And then we choose what we came here to learn, as well as to what we came here to teach. So what do you think this would be for you in this lifetime as Lisa? Learn and teach.
To learn to just be the authentic self. I think that's been a big lesson for me, ongoing, to just embody the fullness and trueness of who you are. And I think I came here maybe just to be part of this awakening process, be a little part of the awakening, maybe like a gardener, to just plant little seeds here and there of awakening, of self-love. Yeah, maybe a gardener, a spiritual gardener.
That's a big role, big mission. And the last question is called 3 Truths. I borrowed it from Lewis Howe's podcast, and it's also a hypothetical question. So imagine that many years from now, you're about to make the transition from this realm into the spiritual realm, and all of your work, all of your books, all of your posts, all of your podcasts have been deleted, and you have a piece of paper in front of you, a pencil, and you can write 3 truths. These are the 3 truths that will live on for your family, for humanity. And so what would be your 3 truths that you would write?
Love is everything. Love, self-love, spiritual love, connection, just love. Love, compassion, tolerance is everything. Be kind to each other. Compassion goes a long way. Just be kind to one another. Come from a compassionate place in your heart. Third one, say yes to everything. Experience life. Let the richness of life fill you up through your experiences. Just say yes to what ignites your soul and just go with it. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. And just wrap up, how can people connect with you? How can people work with you? Is there any project in the pipeline that you want to share?
Yeah, mainly through Instagram at the moment. So yeah, Blue Rose Oracles XX on Instagram. So if people want to connect with me, that's probably like my shop window. It just really resonates, and I put my love and my heart, my energy. It's like the energetic reflection of me. So if you wanted to connect with me or just kind of feel into who I am, what I do, that's probably the best place to go. Currently in the pipeline, meditation, just starting guided meditations, going out into community with meditations. I'm being really moved more in that direction. So yeah, that's just the calling that I'm following right now. Just working more with meditation and being more of a meditation guide. Not so much a guide, I never really liked that word, but more of a meditation guide, helping people to access those tools for themselves. So yeah, that's kind of moving more digitally, I think, is more where I'm going right now.
Yeah. And as usual, I'll post your links to your website and to your Instagram. I know you have all the links in your Instagram as well, an explanation of the different types of services that you offer too, the Akashic reading, the healing, energetic healing work. So it will all be in the description. And Lisa, I just want to acknowledge you for the beautiful work that you're doing in helping us to remember our essence and our multidimensionality. I really appreciate all the work that you do, the intention that you put out in everything that you do, and just your being. So I really want to thank you for your being and for shining your light, for going through all this journey to be able to just be your most authentic self, and in that reflect to us that we can also be that authentic self and our true self. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And just thank you. Reflecting back to you. Thank you for being you, the radiant, vibrant, really heart-based, loving soul that you are, because it flows through everything that you do. You know, everything that you create, everything that you weave into this world is infused with real beauty and real love. So just reflecting that back to you, and thank you for this opportunity, because I'm such a fan of you and your work. So I'm really grateful, and I've absolutely loved it. So thank you.
I receive it, and likewise, the feeling is mutual. Thank you so much, and I'll connect with you soon on Instagram. Thanks for watching or listening to this episode. I hope it has brought you lots of insights and inspiration. And if you would like to learn more about Lisa's work, you can visit her website. It's www.blueroseholistic.com, and follow her on Instagram again for daily energy updates and affirmations at Blue Rose Oracles XX. And as usual, again, you can find all the links in the show's notes. And once again, if this has brought you value, please subscribe to my podcast and share it with your friends who will benefit from this episode too. As always, keep shining your light, keep your heart open, and let love lead the way. I love you. See you in the next episode. Bye.